Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars. Let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today, starting on this 1 day time frame for Bitcoin, because we have now reached the top of this descending channel once again. So let's dive into the short term here and talk about what we should be expecting next here for the Bitcoin price. Starting off with some Fibonacci levels for Bitcoin, because we just broke above the 0.236 Fibonacci level, sitting at about 63.3K for the Bitcoin price. And I do think in the immediate short term, this could be an interesting level to watch, because breaking down below this could be a potential short-term warning signal. Besides that, if we take a look at the RSI momentum indicator for Bitcoin, you can see that on this 4-hour time frame, we are in this very clear uptrend here. However, now breaking down below this ascending trend line for Bitcoin could be another potential warning signal to look out for in the short term here. Now, in the case that you are not completely familiar with this RSI momentum indicator, don't worry. The way the RSI moves back to the downside is either by the Bitcoin price just trading sideways, in which case the RSI would reset down quite slowly, or if we actually get bearish momentum in the short term, this would also send the RSI down, but more quickly than if we are just getting choppy sideways price action. So that is potentially something to look out for if we actually lose this RSI trend line. And one other thing, if you're actually looking for a move to the upside, potentially you could look for a break of this level right here, which is the Fibonacci golden pocket on this lower time frame here, sitting between 63.9K and about 64.2K, where if we would break above this on the 4-hour time frame, likely we would get another move higher here, potentially up to this 0.786 Fibonacci level, sitting at 65.1K, or even above that, this next level of resistance being at 66.5K for the Bitcoin price. So that is potentially something to look out for if we actually break above that Fibonacci golden pocket here. Now, taking a look at the bigger support and resistance levels for Bitcoin, we just bounced from this big level of support here, sitting from 62.4K all the way down to 60,000 US dollars for the Bitcoin price. And right away after breaking 62.4K, we shot up to this next short-term level of resistance, sitting at 64.3K roughly speaking. And again, if we would see a break above 64.3K, very likely we would head up into this next big level of resistance, sitting from 65K all the way up to 66,000 US dollars for the Bitcoin price. Now, the reason I'm showing a bunch of levels of resistance to the upside is because when we are trading, for example, in a big level of resistance like this, you should be paying attention to the price action, because very often what you'll see is you get a move up into this level of resistance, as you can see right here. And then even though we are heavily pumping to the upside, usually you will see some kind of resistance, right? So we need to either chop around a little bit before we confidently break out to the upside. And as you can see right here, we actually got rejected from this big level of resistance, sending us down much lower once again. So therefore, when we are close or in big levels of resistance, then make sure to pay attention to the price action so you do not get fooled longing into a big level of resistance. That is quite a risky thing to do. That is, of course, not financial advice though, but I'm simply telling you what I see in the charts, and you can do with that information what you like. Now, moving on to the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, first of all, on this 2-week time frame. As expected, we have just been seeing a lot of liquidity being grabbed here to the upside. And if you are not familiar with this chart, don't worry. Basically, all you need to know is that typically the Bitcoin price gets attracted to where there is the most liquidity on this chart. And right now, most of the liquidity is sitting at 66.5K to the upside. And there is also quite a bit of liquidity to the downside, sitting at around 60,000 US dollars for the Bitcoin price. One thing you may notice though on the hard right edge of this chart here is that more liquidity is actually to the upside. And I do think if we break out above some of those levels of resistance that I talked about earlier in the video here, it becomes more and more likely that we are going to grab this liquidity to the upside at 66.5K for the Bitcoin price. One thing to look out for though in the short term is actually if you see the price reach into heavy overbought territory on the RSI, which is whenever the RSI is above 70, because usually when we reach into overbought territory, you need to see the RSI kind of reset back down to around this 50 level. And again, as I explained earlier in this video, the way the RSI resets is either by some choppy sideways price action or potentially some bearish momentum in the short term. although for now we haven't reached into that overbought territory yet, and therefore there is still some more room to the upside if again we break those levels of resistance that I talked about earlier in the video. And let me just give you a quick example right here. Be aware that the RSI can go up quite a lot into this overbought territory. So just because we reach exactly 70 isn't necessarily like a sell signal or anything like that, where we need to see the RSI reset back down immediately. We can actually stay in overbought territory, overbought conditions for quite a bit on these lower timeframes here. Now, just a recent example here on the 1 hour time frame is actually this pump to the upside, because here we actually reached into overbought territory. And you see perfectly that after we reached into overbought, the RSI then reset back down to around this 50 level. In this case, we actually reset back down to 48. So we perfectly saw the RSI reset here. Now, lastly, for the Bitcoin ETF flow tables, these are always 1 day behind. So the last day we actually have is the last trading day, which was on Friday. And I already discussed this over the weekend. So if you are really interested in my analysis of these Bitcoin ETFs, then check out some of the recent videos that I made over the weekend here. Either way, for now, we can't say anything about the data for today because it isn't in yet. And therefore, let's check back in with this in tomorrow's video. So this has been today's market update. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you don't miss any of these important updates. Regardless if you do end up subscribing or not, thank you very much for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.